بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجهه الكريم. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. I praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I ask Allah to send countless blessings and salutations on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. And I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to give us divine success to formulate and maintain noble intentions, that we attend these sessions seeking closeness to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, seeking the reward of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, seeking the acceptance of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and seeking Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. It is mentioned in a sacred hadith, al-Hadith al-Qudsi, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam related from his Lord Tabaraka wa Ta'ala the statement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, whoever has enmity to a wali of mine, that is a pious servant of mine, I declare war on them. And the servant will not draw closer to me with anything more beloved than that which I made obligatory upon him. And he would continue to draw closer to me by performing the optional acts of worship until I love him. And I want to stop right there. All of us should work hard to fulfill the contents of this hadith and to experience the fruit of fulfilling this hadith. In other words, we should be keen in performing our obligations first. And what is meant by the obligations is to fulfill all that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala made obligatory upon us in his book Al-Quran, or on the tongue of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his ahadith. Likewise, fulfilling the obligations entails refraining from all the prohibitions that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala revealed in the Quran and that which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam conveyed as prohibitions in his sunnah. And this is the base meaning, the foundational understanding of at-taqwa. It is to perform the obligations and to refrain from the prohibitions. And this is the most important aspect of al-ibadah that we can do. We were created for that purpose. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That I only created the jinn and the human for my worship. That means we're ordered, we're commanded to worship Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And those are the foundational aspects of worship: performing the obligations, refraining from the prohibitions. And the only way we can perform the obligations and refrain from the prohibitions is by acquiring, seeking the knowledge that leads to that performance or that refraining. In other words, one cannot fulfill or perform obligations that one is unaware that they are obligations. So it is an obligation prior to performing those obligations to learn what are the obligations. And likewise, no one could evade sinning. No one could refrain from the prohibitions when they're not aware that these are prohibitions. So it is an obligation prior to refraining from prohibitions to learn what are the prohibitions. And this is in accordance with the chapter heading that Imam al-Bukhari mentioned in his book As-Sahih, when he said in the book of knowledge from Sahih al-Bukhari, the section Bab al-ilmu qabla al-qawli wal-amal, in which Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, he said the section knowledge must precede every statement and action. In other words, we cannot say or do anything until we learn the ruling of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala and his messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam in regard to that statement or that action. Whether that is statement or action is of performance or that statement is action is of avoidance. No matter which one, we have to learn first. And that's what Allah indicated, showing the superiority of the one who learns that first, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, are those who know equal to those who don't know? You know, we spend a lot of time talking about acquiring the knowledge in a proper manner. This is extremely important, especially in the face of the multitude of misguided groups and individuals who are professing to convey Islamic knowledge. In the face of all of these matters that lead to misunderstanding of the religion, it is extremely important that we take learning the knowledge in a proper manner seriously. We should be keen to learn in the proper way and not just follow the crowd because we don't have the strength and the fortitude and the courage to have principled practice and convictions. Principled practice and conviction. All of us should work at the heart level to be firm in upholding this noble tradition. All of us should work hard and we should be firm to uphold this noble tradition. And do not shake in this way. After knowledge, not in a manner of, being fanatical about an idea that we don't understand, right? No, after knowledge, after understanding, then we remain principled upon truth, and we distinguish truth from falsehood. One of the things that I am very concerned about with myself and for you all is that we don't allow people who have not learned properly, have not remained steadfast upon their learning, if they learn properly, to sway us into neglect. Let me repeat that. What I fear for myself and for you as well, that we don't allow people in our midst who didn't learn properly and then try to sway you to that, or who learn properly and compromise their process of learning to allow you to sway to that because of a lack of courage, a lack of fortitude, a lack of steadfastness. We have to be careful about that. When we learn, we have to remain principled. And sometimes we have to be firm to the point it appears as arrogance. What do I mean? Sometimes we have to remain firm to the point that it appears as arrogance. What are you talking about? I'll explain. This person comes, he did not learn. They did not sit with teachers. They did not finish books. They did not do the process, and they're trying to teach us our religion, which is arrogance. And our teachers, they said, the way to confront arrogance sometimes is with its equal. In other words, put them down. You didn't learn, you shouldn't talk. Period. Stop. Full stop. You didn't learn, you shouldn't talk. You should sit down and learn. Simple. When you learned, then you talk. But before that, we don't want to hear anything from you except sit down and learn. Get your pen, get your paper, and learn. You are not qualified to talk. When you learn something, then you talk. Now, that may appear arrogant, but it's true to some that he just told that guy, sit down and shut up. Yes, he needs to sit down and shut up. He didn't learn. He shouldn't talk. He doesn't have an opinion. His opinion is as it's non-existent because he didn't learn. It may seem harsh, but it's real. If he learned, let him talk about what he learned. If he didn't learn, let him be quiet. Period. Full stop. And when we have this approach, we're going to find that when someone speaks, they know what they're talking about. They have learned what they're talking about in the proper way, and then they can speak. That doesn't mean they know everything. We're saying what they know, they learn properly. It's not guesswork. It's not opinionated work. It's actual learning in the proper manner. Then we accept. And that's with all of the acts of worship, all of the prohibitions as first. And then when they do that, they move to the next step of optional acts of worship. After fulfilling those obligations, in the proper way, in the proper methodology, they acquired them properly, all of that is fulfilled, then they move to the optional deeds. And if they do that well and abundantly, then that person, inshallah, will become among the awliya of Allah. May Allah give us tawfiq. This is very important because sometimes some of you come here and waste our time. And I'm going to stop that. Some of you come here and waste our time. We don't have time to waste with you. We don't. Zero. And I realize not only are we wasting time, but you're confusing people. And we can't have that. We spend too much time trying to educate ourselves, to waste our time with people who are not interested in really learning. They're just entertaining themselves. We don't have that kind of time to waste, especially with the short lifespans we have and the large workload we have with it. We have short lifespans. We're not going to live long. Realistically, if most of us have 30 to 20 more years, that's about it. And we're going to be gone. And some of us less than that. I'm talking about by average lifespans. We don't have time to play with you. We don't. We don't have time to waste unraveling your confusion. No one has time for that. Sit down and learn or go somewhere else. Period. That's our approach. So you're going to hear me say it because I want to be, to those who want to waste our time, a thorn in their side. Get out of here. See you later. No one has time to waste with your nonsense. We're trying to learn. Go play with someone else. We're grown. We don't have time. And I know myself, I've been kind of guilty in entertaining that nonsense. But I realize how it can occupy our time where we don't learn. And we have lost if we keep doing that. So I won't do that, inshallah ta'ala. Let us continue. We're on page B6, page 20, section B 6.0. Why qualified scholars differ on legal questions. Bismillah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. The author, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him, said, B6.0 Why qualified scholars differ on legal questions. B6.1 Salih Mu'adhin, rahimahullah, Muslims of the Sunnah and community are in agreement that we have arrived at all the
Sunnah and community, Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, which are the people of the Sunnah and the majority of the Muslim nation. Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the people of the Sunnah and the majority of the nation are the Asha'ira and Maturidiyya in Aqidah. They are the Hanafis, the Malikis, the Shafi'is, and the Hanbalis in fiqh, and they are the people of Sunnah, Tasawwuf rather. They are the people of Sufism. That's Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And everyone who opposes that are the people of innovation and separation. Ahlul Bid'ah wal Furqa. Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah are those Asha'ira, Maturidiyya, Hanafiya, Malikiyya, Shafi'iyya, Hanabila, wa Ahl Tasawwuf. That's Ahl Sunnah. Other than that, Ahlul Bid'ah wal Furqa. They are the people of innovation and separating from the majority of this nation. Now,
are in agreement that we have arrived at all the rulings of sacred law through evidence that is either of an unquestionably established transmission, قطعي al-wurud, or probabilistically established transmission, ظني al-wurud.
so here, when we talk about how we get legal rulings, they reached us by two types of evidence. Evidence that is unquestionably established. In Arabic, they say al-qat'i. They are definitive. And then that which are probabilistically established, meaning they can bear other meanings, that's called a dhanni. So either the evidence is absolute and definitive, or the evidence can bear more than one meaning. All evidences from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the evidence for legal rulings can be either of one type, either type, either qat'i or dhanni. So let me put this here. I want you to keep this in mind. So qat'i is absolute, definitive. Dhanni, meaning it can bear more than one meaning or interpretation. Now, go ahead.
The surahs of the Quran, all of its verses, and those hadiths which have reached us by so many channels of transmission that belief in them is obligatory, mutawatir, as defined at O22.1, letter D, section 2, are
So
all
the
of
hadith, all of the Quran and its verses are of that type. And the hadith that are mutawatir, and this is important, so there are different types of hadith. When we're talking about the hadith that have multiple channels of transmission and chains, these are called mutawatir. When a hadith are mutawatir, then it is definitive as an evidence.
are all of unquestionably established transmission, since they have reached us by numerous means, by generation from generation, whole groups from whole groups, such that it is impossible that the various channels could all have conspired to fabricate them.
So in way, whenever information reaches us through that route, whether through the Quran or the hadith that is mutawatira, right? Then such transmission is established and we can take it as a legal evidence.
As for the evidentiary character of these texts, regardless whether they are of unquestionably or probabilistically established transmission, they are of two types.
Mhm.
The first type, unquestionable as evidence, qati'i al-dalala, is a plain text that does not admit of more than one meaning, which no mind can interpret beyond its one meaning, and which there is no possibility to construe in terms of other than its apparent sense. This
Mm.
type includes Quranic verses that deal with fundamental tenets of faith in the oneness of Allah Ta'ala, the prayer, zakat, and fasting, in none of which is there any room for disagreement, nor have any differences concerning them been heard of or reported from the Imams of sacred law. Everything in this category is termed unquestionable as evidence.
So here, when we're talking about narrations, so narrations reached us from different types. Some narrations, the way it reached us is definitive. That's the Quran, and that's the ahadith mutawatira, right? Those continuous hadith. The way they reached us is definitive. Now, even though they're definitive, what about them being evidence as a proof? Then some of them are going to reach us in a way, the language of it, the wording, can only bear one meaning, and the scholars have agreed on that meaning. They have not reported differences of interpretation. Such a thing as an absolute definitive proof. Is this clear? Is this clear for everyone? Allahu Akbar. Okay, go ahead.
The second type, probabilistic as evidence, dhani al-dalala, is a text that can bear more than one meaning, whether because it contains a word that can lexically have two different meanings, or because it was made by way of figure of speech or metaphor, or because it can be interpreted in other than its apparent sense in the context without this contradicting what was intended by the wise lawgiver.
Right. So
It
here, this second aspect, we're talking about one thing is how it reached us. That's one point. So, did it reach us by a definitive way? Did it reach us by a way in which it could be established, or it is possibly not established? There are different types of reports that are like that, right? So if it's a singular report, then this is not definitive because it's the possibility that the narrator could have made a mistake, right? So it's not going to be a definitive report. This we'll learn when we talk about Aqidah, right? Some of those uh, narrations that reached us from singular reports, some scholars do not take them in the creed, right? Because of this issue. That's another discussion we'll discuss later. But when we're talking about this thing as an evidence, no matter which way it reached us, it's still the actual report can bear linguistically, in terms of context, more than one meaning, and depending on what one understands from it is going to determine how one understands the legal ruling. Mm.
It is here that we find scope for scholarly difference of opinion to a greater or lesser extent, depending on the number of meanings a text can imply, how much interpretation it will bear, and so forth.
So
However,
understand this, whenever we talk about differences between the scholars, whenever we talk about differences between the scholars, it is related to the second category, not the first. In other words, when something has reached us through a definitive route, and that evidence that can be taken from that definitive narration only bears one meaning, you're not going to have scholarly differences. It only will be scholarly differences when that narration has the way it reached us is not definitive, and or even if it's definitive, the wording of itself can bear more than one meaning. There's where you're going to have scholarly differences. So whenever you see a scholarly differences among scholars, and I'm talking about the scholars of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah in this case, among the four Imams, for instance, and their followers, you should know that the source of that differences is in understanding the religious rulings through the evidence and the texts that were conveyed about those issues. This is very important. Is this point clear? Let me stop here to make, I'm trying to simplify this as simple as possible. Do y'all understand? Because we're talking about when we see differences. While we have Hanafi school, Maliki school, Shafi'i school, Hanbali school. These are all legal rulings. Why do they differ? This is the source in the most general way for you to understand why there's scholarly differences. Does everyone follow me? So what should tell you no scholar among the four imams at any level just has an opinion and they differ because it's an opinion. I think you think. No, it is the text that has reached them, how it's reached them, and the possibilities of meanings that can be taken from that text is where scholars would differ. When that is not available, in other words, when the words of the text cannot bear another meaning and there is scholarly agreement on that meaning, there's no difference of opinion. That's when we call consensus. Exactly. Exactly. This is in the most basic level. So when you see in fiqh, let me make it more practical. I need you to understand this. When you study properly, we're going to wipe out the others. We don't even need to mention the others. Outside of the four imams and their schools, the Hanafi school, the Maliki school, the Shafi'i school, the Hanbali school, for our purposes, we're not talking about anybody else. That's not in the discussion. Because in our light, these are innovators, and we're not concerned about their matters for our studies. We're talking about within the framework of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. That's what we're talking about. Whenever we study any school, we have levels of our studies. We first study summarized texts, then we study intermediate texts, then we study advanced texts, then we study super commentaries. That's in every school, that's how we learn with teachers, who have chains of narration to those texts. And those texts are relied upon texts within the school, right? By the way, there are some people, many people, that I've noticed that claim to follow the Shafi'i school. And this is specific because I've heard this several times and I've seen it. So I'm going to clarify it. If you're one of them, I'm not talking about you specifically, even though you're in the group. But many people I've seen said this. In the Shafi'i school, never among the books in the school is this book a part of the curriculum. Never. Please note that. In the Shafi'i school, none of us in the history of the madhab, especially contemporary, which is this book, study fiqh sunnah to learn fiqh. Please note that. If you are a Shafi'i and you're reading that book, you're not following the Shafi'i school. Is this clear for everyone? Because I talked to people, and they said, I'm Shafi'i, and I saw in their library this book. And I talked to others, they mentioned this book. I've seen many people doing this. This book is not to be read except to say it's not permissible to follow. Did y'all hear me? I am not stuttering with this. This book is 3 volumes in English, in Arabic too, I think, right? It is not permissible to teach except to show that it's not permissible to follow. It is not a book in the Shafi'i curriculum at all. Do everyone understand that? Our teachers, they said about this book that it is unlawful to teach except to inform the student that the positions are unlawful to spread. They said it's haram to teach this book. Haram, you cannot teach it. Especially to attribute it to the Shafi'i school. One of my teachers, he said, this book is like, in terms of fiqh books within the school, is like taking a tricycle on the highway. They explained, like they said, this book is like taking a tricycle on the highway. What's going to happen if you take a tricycle on the highway? You get on the main highway and you get on there with a tricycle. What's going to happen to you? That's the significance. So beware. If you ever see someone trying to teach you that book, talking about we follow a madhab, let them know that's not permissible to teach that book. That's not the Shafi'i school. It has nothing to do with the Shafi'i school, and no Shafi'i would study that book. We have our own methodology, our own books, so be careful. That's just a warning why I mentioned that. So in every school, you have in summarize introductory books, beginner books, you have intermediate level books, you have advanced books, and you have super commentaries. In every school, that curriculum should be studied with a living teacher who has a chain of narration to those books and their authors, and then from those authors to the scholars of the madhab. Every madhab, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, has the same exact system. Please don't let no one deviate you from that system. If you don't learn that way, go find a teacher. If you're here with me, I will help you with that. I will guide you through that. But let's stop playing games when it comes to learning our religion. We have to get a little more serious. And as I think about it, as I listen to some conversations, especially over the last week or two, I've been following things, I've been listening, I've been reading, and it's getting dangerous out here, right? Ignoramuses who didn't learn at all, who are lazy, are speaking in a way of authority that has never been seen in this ummah before. It's getting scary. And there must be a people among us who rise up and check that stuff, right? Even if you're not scholarly, but stick within the system and stop that stuff. It's a train wreck waiting to happen. So we have to be more firm. We have to stop being afraid of our own shadows. You know, with the truth, you know the truth, you speak it as it is. Stop dancing around the reality. Naam, go ahead.
All of the derivative rulings of sacred law are of this type, probabilistic as evidence, so we naturally find differences among Islamic legal scholars as to their interpretation, each scholar interpreting them according to his comprehension and the broadness of his horizons, while not giving the text a reading it does not imply, and then corroborating his interpretation with evidence acceptable to scholars. Scholarly differences are thus something natural, even logically necessary, as a result of the factors we have just described.
Naam.
Allah.
So that's now listen, that can be in general, that's between the four schools. But this reality can also exist within a school. So now I want you to understand something. In every school, you have a relied upon opinion and you have scholarly differences within one school. Are y'all following me? In every school, the Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali, I'm not talking about nothing else. I'm talking about Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, right? In every school, you have scholarly differences. But in every school, you have the relied upon opinion in the school, right? So that's within one school. Likewise, you have differences of opinion outside the schools between the four schools. Now, and all of them are based on a similar cause of differences of opinions. Now,
Allah Ta'ala, mighty and majestic, has willed that most texts of the sacred law be probabilistic as evidence because of a wisdom he demands, namely to give people more choice and leave room for minds to use ijtihad in understanding his word and that of his messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah Ta'ala bless him and give him peace.
mhm.
B 6.2. We conclude this short summary with an example to clarify what we have said. Consider the word of Allah Ta'ala. Divorced women shall wait by themselves for 3 periods. Quran Surah 2, Ayah 228. As
Mhm.
opposed to his saying in the same surah, those who forswear their women have a wait of 4 months. Quran Surah 22, Ayah 226. Allah Ta'ala saying, quote unquote, 3 in the former and quote unquote 4 in the latter are texts that are decisive as evidence and that neither admits of more than one interpretation, namely the well known numbers. But in contrast with this, when Allah Ta'ala says periods in Arabic, kuru, in the first and quote unquote months, ashur, in the second, we find that the former word can have more than one sense in its Arabic lexical root meaning, while months cannot, the latter being decisive in meaning and incapable of bearing another interpretation. Concerning this question, Imam Qurtubi,
Imam
rahimahullah,
al-Qurtubi was a famous Ash'ari Maliki scholar who commentated on the Quran, and his tafsir of the Quran is called Al-Jami'u li Ahkam al-Quran. Mm.
says in his Quranic exegesis, scholars differ about the word periods. Those of Kufa hold that it means menstrual periods, and this is the position of Umar, Ali, and Ibn Masud, radiallahu anhum, but those of the Hijaz hold it means the intervals of purity between menstrual periods, and this is the view of Aisha, Ibn Umar, and Shafi'i.
So in this issue, you're going to find a difference between the waiting period of the women in the Hanafi school, which is an Iraqi school, and the Shafi'i school, which is a Hijazi school. So therefore, the way they understand the waiting period of the women is going to differ based on this word. Mm.
Considering this, is it not is it not natural that there should be various opinions about understanding the verse, quote unquote, 3 periods, but only one about understanding Allah Ta'ala saying 4 months? If Allah Ta'ala had wanted all opinions to coincide on this question, He might have said, for example, 3 menstrual periods, hiyat, or 3 intervals of purity between menstrual periods, athar, just
That's
as He said, quote
that's
unquote, athar, excuse me, just as He said, quote unquote, 4 months. And all the texts of sacred law that can bear more than one meaning are comparable to this example.
وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Let us stop there. Here, I just really want us to think about something. If we're going to succeed as a people in this deen, sometimes I be having some serious conversations, right? And I think about it a lot. If you watch Christianity and you study its development and how it reached today, I want you to pay attention to it and then make an analogy from that to what you see happen in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ told us we're going to follow the ways of the Christians and Jews, right? We're going to follow their ways. And eventually we can be destroyed like they were destroyed. If you notice that the Christians reached a point of uh, let's say, updating, reviving, renewing, reforming is the better word, their religious practices and books and way of learning to it reached a point to now there's no rules at all, right? It's gradually happened, right? And at every level, they were getting away from the classical approach of Christianity. To today, there is no rules. Anyone can do anything in the name of Christianity as a practice, and it is an accepted practice. So the church is no longer a place of rules. It is just whatever you like, do it. Right? Have you noticed this? So now you got all different types of Christianity with no structural system. This everyone just opens a church and do whatever they want. There's no rules. Interpret the Bible in any way they want. Right? Even the very basic foundational principles of the religion, like same-sex marriage, is wiped out from the pulpit. This is a reality, right? From the pulpit. Even America at once was a Christian land, quote unquote. Even the laws have changed to accommodate this free fall of religious thought and practice. In the name of Christianity, I'm talking about. I'm not talking about nothing else. If we're not careful, Islam will become the same among us, and it's happening slowly but surely. With the dismissal of scholarship, of classical books, of classical understanding of the religion, and then reformed with modernist thoughts and modernist opinions and modernist practice and modernist beliefs, slowly but surely, the deen is being dismantled over time. Do you know, to give you example, there was a time when there was Islamic rulership, Khilafah, not anyone could just open a mosque and teach whatever they want. That was not, there was scholarship, there was checks and balances, there was laws, there was, right? It goes free fall. I cannot tell you how many calls I receive from women who have been victimized by the absence of qualified teachers and rules. So every guy's an imam, every guy's his own sheikh, and every guy's his own interpreter. And those women, since they have no recourse to real Islamic learning, to real leadership, to real authority, they fall victim to that and they end up abused. And then they come and they say, Imam, with this, I said, SubhanAllah, this guy, who is he? Uh, who is he? Where did he learn? Who taught him? Where's the checks and balances? Nothing? Okay, well, there's the result. He's his own mufti. He doesn't have teachers. He doesn't have a congregation to answer to. He just does whatever he wants. And that becomes worse when now this person is just doing his own teaching. No checks and balances. No way to verify that he's in conformity with our tradition. This is not acceptable. So for us, when you see us taking a rigorous stance against that which departs from our tradition, know this is what we're trying to avoid, while maintaining our tradition to the best of our ability, because trust me, we are deficient in this area. We are deficient in this area. Trust me, we don't have the skill set nor the authority that we need. But what little we have left, we have to maintain it. And I'm telling you, we have to prevent our tradition from being destroyed. Our Sunni tradition is under attack. People who claim to be Sunni are destroying our tradition. Please, please, please learn well and protect this tradition. It's all we have for salvation in the hereafter. You have some real ignorant people saying real ignorant stuff and Sunnis liking it, contradicting our tradition left and right. And Sunni people like, love, comment, applaud. I thought you were Ahl Sunnah. What are you doing? Sunnis mixing ideology for fame, sitting, lecturing, joining with innovators in the religion without mentioning their innovation, and unsuspecting people are following innovators because you as a Sunni want to be Rodney King. This is scary. Stand up. You are Ahl Sunnah. Stand up. You don't have to be mean, but you have to be a man. You have to convey the truth. This is important. This is not something that we should be lazy about. This is serious business. This is our hereafter. For your fame, for your followers, don't compromise our religion. And all these slick ways, we're going to do. Listen, I'm not saying you should be enemies of no one unnecessarily, but you should be clear. I'm not saying you should be clear. Don't mislead people by your practice. Be clear. We are cooperating in this issue, and this issue we don't agree, and it's not permissible to follow that. I'm not saying we live in a world, we got to work with people. I'm not saying don't work with people. I'm saying be clear. When someone has a bad belief in the name of Islam and you join them and you don't distinguish in that, you are betraying our tradition. I don't care who you are. When you are shaking hands and setting up conferences and joining and liking someone who has a belief that contradicts Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, that has a practice that contradicts Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, and that person is claiming Islam, you are a partner in that crime. I don't care who you are, how famous you are. All of us are under this tradition. None of us escape. I don't care how popular you are. I don't care who you study with. If you are Sunni, you need to maintain this tradition, period. I don't care who you are. Don't make a difference because so-and-so, the famous guy, he's mistaken in that. He shouldn't be doing that. We have to protect our religion, period. Do you follow what I'm saying? Am I clear? Am I clear? It's very important because I see what's happening. I want to give you an example, and this is going to be harsh, but I'm being honest. Do you know when the civil rights struggle was at its height, many groups other than African Americans joined the struggle as a way of saying we all support one another. And you would notice that after a while, their struggle became the forefront and the black struggle went to the back. And their rights were put forward and the black rights remained in the same condition. Have you noticed that? Without me even being specific and naming them, have you noticed that pattern? It was the civil rights black struggle. Others joined that struggle, supported it with the intent of putting their struggle forward. After time, the black struggle went to the back and the struggle of others became to the forefront, and the black struggle was completely ignored. The rights of the others went forward and the blacks stayed in the same condition. Did you notice that? Forget names. Did you notice that pattern? Forget names who. That's not important at this stage. Do you notice the pattern? Have you noticed that? Obviously. The same thing will happen in the name of Islam. You keep trying to get innovators in belief and practice to support you, and you're joining. What you're going to notice is that innovative beliefs and practices are going to be at the forefront, and Sunni Islam is going to disappear. Keep this in mind. You keep mixing with innovators in belief and not defining the scope clearly of what you're working on and what you're not working on, deviation will become known as religion, and Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah is going to disappear. Be careful. History will teach you if you pay attention. Be careful. Be careful. So why you say this is the way we're going to all work together and we're going to, mashallah, and we're going to get some of their followers? No. Forget one thing. The society of kufr doesn't want truth. If they can mix it and have you mix into they'll highlight one and wipe out the other, they'll do it. That's how it works. So you think in your mind we're being, mashallah, we're being tolerant. Yeah. You're setting up to destroy our tradition, and you're being used for that. Be careful. Be clear. To the point, I'm going to say this, and this is the last explicit part I'm going to say. That's why they don't want us to say Wahhabi. I'm going to tell you why people don't want you to say the word Wahhabi or Wahhabiyya. Because the Wahhabiyya have bad ideas, bad beliefs, bad practices. If they can convey those bad beliefs and bad practices in another name and they would become acceptable, then they would be victorious in spreading those bad beliefs in another name. But if you keep saying Wahhabi, it already has that reputation. It's known around the world what a Wahhabi is. But if I can get away with giving another name and convince you that that name is blameworthy and it's derogatory, but it's identifying my bad belief, I can spread my bad belief as an Athari, as a Salafi, as a Hanbali. It's the same bad belief that is known as Al-Wahhabiyya. And then if I can get some Sunnis to join me in that, I will spread this bad belief. Do you understand? Oh, idiot, wake up. It's happening right in front of your face. And worse, I can have you fight Ahl Sunnah, Al Ashaira, Wal Maturidiyya in the name of defending some creed that has died, and spread false creed in your name, and you remain silent and fight the people of truth. How dumb can you be? And I mean, this is the height of stupidity. You've been played. You've been played. And then Sunnis who are Sunni still defending this foolishness. Wake up. We're not that dumb. Especially as black people, we can't afford to be that stupid. And I mean those words as harsh as they sound. We cannot afford to be that stupid. Our people deserve better. This stuff is insane, but we're falling for it. We can't be that dumb. I want you to hear it just like that. That is the height of stupidity. We're repeating something that's right in front of our eyes. We can do it. No. I don't care how much money we get. A guy came in my office after Jumu'ah. I'm telling you how they think of us. He wanted to do something, and he said, I will pay. I will give you thousands of dollars to let me do this. I said, you can't pay me to do that. You got the wrong person. You got the total wrong person. I said, I don't care if you gave millions of dollars. I would never do that. This is the rules, and you will follow them or you will get out of here. I don't care how much money you got. He said, but I went to the other mosque and I gave some money and they let me do it. I said, well, you need to go back to that other mosque. You in the wrong one. My name is Amin Muhammad. I'm not for sale. He looked at me. I'm sorry for offending you. I'm not offended. I'm just telling you the reality. You can't buy me. It ain't no money. I'm not for sale. This way of our religion is the way it is, and that's the way it's going. And you can't buy me. He literally came and said, I'll pay you. I said, I'll pay the mosque. I'll pay whatever it needs. You're crazy. Get out of here. I'm sorry, Imam. I didn't mean to offend you. It's not about offending me. I'm not for sale. And this deen shouldn't be for sale, not for my fame or money. I don't care how much you got. No, that's how they think. And it's the same thing. I'll put you on my platform. I'll spread you. You get followers. You'll become famous. They're buying you. You shouldn't be for sale. If we're going to share the platform and you are sincere, then let's sincerely tell the people where we differ, and the difference is serious. We can't ignore this. We cannot believe these things. This person believes this, it's wrong. We are working on this, and this is a good thing. Let's work together. We have common community and societal issues that we should work together on. No matter you Muslim, non-Muslim, it doesn't matter. But this has nothing to do with making us think we all have the same practice and belief and it's all acceptable, all called Islam. La. That's not permissible. And I say it because I see what's happening. And know who's going to get the backdrop of that? Black folk. That's why I'm really upset about it, because it's bad for the ummah as a whole, but it's going to destroy black people. Because that's whose lap it's going to fall in at the end of the day. In this society, all of the bad information, all of the bad food, all of the bad everything ends up in the black community. Do you notice that? When all of the supermarkets, they get the worst, go to the black community. The worst vegetables, the worst food, the most horrible product, the garbage in entertainment, all of that dumped on the black community. And they're going to do the same thing in Islam if we don't stop it. The worst innovations in the black community, the bad ideas, cults, all that stuff in the black community. When are we going to say no more? While all of the good product, all of the scholarship, all of that stuff remains in the suburbs with white folks and immigrants who live with white folks. While the black community gets destroyed and everyone turns a blind eye and say, who cares about those niggas? In state, even if they don't say it with their tongue. In state, who cares about those niggas? Even if they don't use their tongue to say it. Their state speaks louder than their tongue. And some of us got to say, heck no, you're not dumping that in my community. No. You're not dumping that in our community. Absolutely not. No. Some of us got to take a stand and stop trying to be fake pious. When we realize what's happening, we have to make a change. Too many of you are in different cities and can't find a Sunni masjid that's African American. You can't find it. It's always mixed with some stuff. Where's a pure Sunni masjid that's Ashari, Maturidi, or Maturidi? That's either Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali, and Sufi. And all three are met in one masjid of African American folks. Find it. It's a struggle. That's why you're here. It's a struggle. That's why you're here. We have to change that when this is the way of the majority of the Muslim nation. How is it so hard in our community to find it? Think about it. This is historically the way of the majority of the Muslim nation, and you're hard pressed to find it in our community, which is my point. But you can find deviation, you can find innovative beliefs, you can find stuff that contradict Ahl Sunnah all over the country in our communities. But if you want to be Sunni, it's a struggle. That's a problem, and we have to fix it. That's why we cannot be quiet. That's why we cannot be shy. This is a problem. This is a problem. And until this problem is solved, we have to be explicit, clear. We have to. We have no choice. They've left us no choice, especially when you got Sunnis contributing to the problem. Personally, I'm Sunni, but my approach is Rodney Kingi, to the detriment of our tradition. Well, we can't accept. And listen, even if we have to be alone in that, even if the others hide from us, stay away from us, hey, listen, I'm not asking you to do anything but preserve our tradition. Teach our classical books as you learned it. Spread it among the people as you learned it. Teach what your teachers taught as you learned it. And I know you're not doing it because I know your teachers. All around the world, I know the books of your teachers. I know their curriculums. You're not doing it. You're playing games. I know it. I can show you that your teachers said nothing more than what we're saying. The books that your teachers wrote are nothing more than what we're saying. Their books are explicitly clear. The curriculum that your teachers taught is nothing more than we're saying. Why are you doing something different when it comes to us? All around the world, all of the famous Sunni, quiet, go look at their teachers, go look at their books, go study, because we don't have access. We don't realize how people playing games with us. Their teachers are not doing what they're doing here. You go over to watch all this stuff they're doing, you will not find their sheikhs doing that stuff. In their countries, they don't do it. Why are you here playing games? Your sheikh wouldn't do it. The sheikh of your sheikh wouldn't do it. The sheikh of your sheikh wouldn't do it. The sheikh of the sheikhs of the sheikhs of the sheikhs of your sheikhs wouldn't do it. Why are you doing it? This is real. It's available. It's proven. Doubt me, I'll show you. You doubt what I'm saying? I'll show you. I'll show you the books. I'll show you the activity of your teachers. We can examine the chain of narrations of your teachers and see if they was doing this crap y'all doing over here. Absolutely not. Y'all playing games, politics, and we suffering for it. Get out of here. It's true, and you know it. And if you say it's not true, let's open the books and show me. Let's open the books of your teachers, generation to generation, and see if what I'm saying is not true. See if they're playing games with the religion, mixing stuff up between deviation and Ahl Sunnah, and they ain't did that stuff. You know it and I know it. I've been behind the scenes. I know better. Can't tell me that. I watch what y'all doing. I watch what they're teaching. And I watch what you're doing and spreading among us. It's a big difference. We can't play those games. No. We can't afford it. Maybe y'all got that luxury somewhere else. African Americans in these inner cities, we can't afford that. We got too many issues to add a confused religious thing that's trying to save us. We've been through that for 100 years. We're tired of that stuff. I'll stop here. I hope you got my point. I hope my point is clear. And I realize the more I think about it, man, somebody got to stand up. Somebody got to take the criticism. Somebody got to be the bad guy. Somebody got to break this stuff. We cannot do it. It's too many of us tap dancing around truth. We can't do it. It's going to kill us. And if we love us, and you should love you, stop it. You should work hard to stop it. It's going to hurt us. I'm telling you. If you study history, Akil Fahad, he's a historian. He works in this research. He pulled out Bin Baz mentioning Wahhabi, praising it, talking about the belief of the Wahhabiyya in his books. Bin Baz, the former Mufti of Saudi Arabia, the leader of the Wahhabis in our time, he mentioned Wahhabi. No one said to Bin Baz, don't say Wahhabi. But you're going to tell us, don't say Wahhabi. Why you didn't tell Bin Baz that? He's the leader of them. He knows who he is. He's the leader. He was the Mufti. He knows what they're called and what they're not called. He said Wahhabiyya. But you tell us, hide it. He was proud of it. You read the books of those Saudis, they don't hide who they are. They don't hide their beliefs. They consider Sunnis as innovators, idol worshippers, grave worshippers, and deviants. And it's in every one of their books. But you want to color it and bring that stuff in our community. Come on, man. Stop. We're not that stupid. And if some of us are that stupid, the intelligent ones among us need to stop that stupidity. We're not that stupid. And if some of us are that stupid, the intelligent ones among us must stop that stupidity. Our people can't afford it. Period. And I'll stop there. Furkan, I'm going to give you a whole curriculum. I'm just warming up. I ain't even start because I realize if we don't do it, we're in trouble. I've done it, but most people probably didn't pay attention. But we're going to do it all over again to ensure that no one deceives you. We're going to lay it out so that no one deceives you. If Allah wills for you to be misguided, ain't nothing we can do about it. If Allah wills for us to be misguided. But we got to do our work. What's in our capacity is to learn properly, to research, to study, to check, to review. We have that ability and we must do it. And we must teach each other how to do it. No more just settling for nonsense because we're lazy. This is a plague on our community, laziness. The Prophet sought refuge in Allah from laziness. We have to put in the work. We can't just substitute work for saying, everybody does it. Yeah, and look at the result of everybody doing it. Deviant groups in our community, racism in the name of Ahl Sunnah spreading in our communities. People come, take our resources, destroy us, leave us in the same state, and we say, oh, we black, it don't matter. No, we can't take this stuff no more. It must stop. And it should stop with our generation to the best of our ability. It should stop with us right here, right now, no more. Every generation should have that feeling. Nah, it stops with us. It stops with us. No more of this stuff. We're going to have access. We're going to be treated fairly. We're going to learn our religion. You're not just going to be telling us anything. Them days are over. They're over. Hang it up. It's not happening. We ain't going for it. And this is a battle, trust me. It's a battle. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty because oppressors don't give up oppression easily. Oppressors do not give up oppression easily, not without a fight. So it's going to be a battle. Count on it. I'm not taking my knee off your neck just because you said it. You're going to have to take that knee off my neck, off your neck. You're going to have to take my knee off your neck. That's how it goes. You're going to have to fight for your freedom. I'm not giving you nothing. Period. You're going to have to battle for it. If you want to be free, if you want to be educated, you're going to have to fight for it. You're going to have to stand up for it. I'm not giving you nothing. That's how the oppressor thinks. We've learned it from our struggle as African Americans. Did they just give us education? Did they just volunteer for us to get jobs, for us to rise up? No, we had to struggle and fight for that. Well, the same thing we're going to have to do in Islam. Period. We got to fight. And it doesn't mean we're going to necessarily strike someone. We have to use our intellects and our energies and our aspiration, our resources, our wealth. We're in a battle. We got to fight back. We can't just lay down. No. With that, I'll end. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Barakallahu fikum wa jazakum Allahu khaira. May Allah make us steadfast people. May Allah make us people of high aspirations. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us lions for Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow the truth to flow through our hearts and upon our tongues to the ears of the listeners. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the openings of the knowers of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. We're in a situation of the battle. We have to protect our fort. We have to protect our people. We have to protect future generations. No one cares about us like they should. And we have to care about ourselves like we must. No one cares about us like they should. But we must care about us as we must do it. May Allah give us tawfiq. Barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.